The next big thing up here is Cam Johnson tore the meniscus in his right knee, and he's going to have surgery on it. We don't have clarification, I believe, yet. I'm recording this at like 2:20 in the morning on Tuesday as to what route he went with it, but this is going to be a matter of months. And I think most realistically, 1 to 2 months on some of the timetables, that just seems a little quick. And so maybe they won't go to the 4 to 6 month timetable. That would be really killer. But we're probably looking at, I would say, a minimum of like 2 months, even if they go. And if I missed it, I apologize. I thought I did look before I hopped on here. But even if they go the route that's going to have a shorter recovery, it's like we're talking about maybe he comes back like just before the trade deadline or something, which means that they have to do something. Which the Suns have to do something. Also, because CP3 leaves their loss to the Sixers on Monday night with right heel soreness. He didn't think it was going to be a long-term issue, he said. I believe he was asked if he believed it was precautionary. He said yes, but he also said if he could have played, he would have been out there. So that's a little bit ominous, at least. And we're just dealing with someone who is in their late 30s now. So that's something you have to keep in the back of your mind. Cam specifically, just their best shooter on the team. I mean, he leads the team in catch and shoot 3-point attempts this season at 5.9. Next up is Damian Lee at 2.6 per game. It's like he more than doubles up the catch and shoot 3-point attempts per game. And he's shooting 42.2% on catch and shoot threes overall. That is Cam Johnson. The starting lineup with him, by the way, is outscoring opponents by 29.5 points per 100 possessions per cleaning the glass. When you start to sub in other guys, Damian Lee before Damian Lee as of now, you're plus 4.1 when he's with the starters, and you're minus 6.1 when that's Torrey Craig playing with the other four starters. So you need to do something. And like Cam Johnson is important for so many reasons. Is he's rock solid positionally as a defender. He is a movement shooter. Like his shots can come in all forms. It gives you a little bit of off the dribble stuff. Not someone who's going to put a ton of pressure on the rim, though. Still, he's a big part of not even just your 3-point efficiency, but your 3-point volume. And there's just like, you're not going to replace that on the roster. So you have to look. I guess if we're saying, well, they're going to first and foremost look on the roster, it's going to be Torrey Craig and Damian Lee will pick up like the majority of the slack there. Like you can extend. Josh Okogie is a monster defensively, but he just hamstrings you so much offensively. At least Torrey Craig can put up threes and they have a prayer of going in at this point. They've actually gone in at a higher clip than normal through the start of this season. It's like between those three guys, you're just not going to get enough. And none of them is going to be as dynamic as Cameron Johnson, frankly. Like his decision making, being able to give you that like second layer of scoring where it's not just off the catch. Let's call it like the 2 or more dribble scoring. Damian Lee might give you like a little bit of that, but there's more fluidity and maybe even directionality to Cam's game there. So how do you go about fixing this? Could you bring Jay Crowder back? That helps you defensively. There's familiarity there. The 3-point volume as well. He trusts himself off the dribble, even though a lot of them can be misadventures. I don't know if he comes back to the team at this point. It would make a lot of sense for both parties just because his value, if he sits out this year, I don't know how much that actually helps him leading into free agency, but it might just be sort of making it look like the Suns were bent over a barrel by Jay Crowder in this situation, which I doubt they want. Otherwise, he would maybe be with the team or they would have just extended him or traded him for the sake of trading him. I think this makes it more likely that they do move him for like a smaller return, whereas we see the Suns make a move before the trade deadline. Maybe it's not a huge move because I think you have to, if you're them, keep the Kevin Durant item in play. And like the Nets are so implosive, you at least have to have that in your periphery. And so you don't go and trade a bunch of first round picks. And so it's, can you trade Jay Crowder straight up or with some other money? And maybe you're attaching some lower level pick equity to bring someone back. We'll get into names in a second. That seems like the more likely route. I personally would see if there wasn't like, and even if it came down to extending Jay Crowder, I'd like, what is the number? But just having him back, and if the number is manageable, you're very much working on a win now timeline. And so I am probably in the minority if we're comparing myself to Suns fans. I don't hate the idea of Jay Crowder coming back. I imagine the locker room would be fine. I don't like, this feels like a very much Jay Crowder versus the front office. Again, he did kind of just bail on the 64-win team. Maybe that pisses off CP3, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, etc., Mikal Bridges. That being said, if he comes back, I feel like the Suns would figure out a way to make it work on the court and off the court as well. It does feel unlikely. the free agency ranks don't really leave anybody. I know that Suns fans have floated Melo. Yeah, do it. He gives you a lot more scoring optionality than Josh Okogie, that's for sure, and Torrey Craig as well, even more so than Damian Lee. And he turned himself into a nice complimentary 3-point shooter over the past few seasons of his career. Definitely not going to give you much defensively. I think if you're putting him in the starting lineup, the case for me to start him would be, okay, well, then you're playing him with Bridges and Ayton, and like that's your mass coverage right there. In addition to just having someone who's rock solid at their position in Devin Booker, Chris Paul's probably, he's lost a few steps there, assuming he's going to be healthy. But that might be your argument for starting him. If you're bringing him off the bench, you probably try and make sure that you're, I know Jock Landale is good defensively. Like he has really, twitchy feet and he can make stops at the rim and hang in space as well. I would just be like, hey, you need to try and tie Melo to Mikal Bridges' minutes or maybe even DeAndre Ayton's minutes, just to have someone behind him. Like that's something that you would have to consider. I would still do it. He's not playing right now, and he's proven that he could be a really useful offensive accessory. But that's like it when you're looking at free agents. Trade targets are a little bit more interesting. And so the list I made, look, throw Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant on there if they're going to make the home run trade. I don't know that there's anybody else in terms of home run targets right now. So all the names that I listed are very much, they're not going to give up the farm to get them. These are guys that could fit, that could help them. Probably, I don't think any of these guys some of them might replace some of Cam shooting. They're not going to replace all of that threat, but I'm thinking of it in the vein of you can make this trade and still have the necessary draft pick equity left over after the fact to get involved in the Kevin Durant sweepstakes, or if another player star becomes available close to the trade deadline leading into next summer. Since you're very much in the now, but you also you want that star to fit with the Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges timeline, especially who's ever left after that trade. Obviously, Devin Booker is the timeline for this team, if we're being frank. So some of the targets that I came up with, let's get the Knicks one out of the way. I think Julius Randle's popped up in Sun circles. If they're just going to send back, like pile the money on top of each other when you're looking at I guess, are they sending Jay Crowder out in that deal? Like, the Knicks could probably use Jay Crowder. I'm not going to lie. They have Quentin Grimes and Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett, but they could probably use Jay Crowder. So you send out Dario Saric and Jay Crowder, and then you're almost at Julius Randle's money if you want him. The other thing I did think, if you're willing to give up pick equity, since Tom Thibodeau, he's tried out Obi and Julius Randle more in stretches, but he still seems to have sort of this quick hook with Obi. Is Obi available? Like, this team could totally try him out with the way he's shooting threes. They can make it work. But that would be an option. Harrison Barnes in Sacramento, he's been bad. Harrison Barnes has been terrible this season. I just wonder if something's going on there. I also wonder if it lowered the cost to get him. If you're the Kings and you need to get stops, Jay Crowder is more valuable to you than Harrison Barnes right now. I don't think you're getting a pick from the Kings, at least not a first-round pick for trading Harrison, taking on Harrison Barnes. He is an expiring contract, but he's not as much of a liability with the way that the Suns defend and who they have around him. And can he regain some of his offensive swagger? That option feels more realistic than ever, and it could maybe pan out in the favor of both teams, just because if Jay Crowder, if the Kings think about extending him or communicate that they do want to keep him beyond the season, or that they're going to give him a spot in the starting lineup, that works out well for him as well. So there's that name. Bojan Bogdanovic did sign an extension with the Pistons. He can still be traded. He can under the terms of his extension. So that would be something to look at. I don't know how much more he costs you with 2 more years left on his deal, but you can get away with salary filler. And let's say it's this year's first. I don't think that would remove you from the Kevin Durant sweepstakes. Then the Nets, if they do move him, will be more interested in your picks in 2025 and beyond, since those post-date CP3 essentially. And you would have all those still in your chamber if you made that Bojan Bogdanovic trade. But it does seem like the Pistons value him still. If they're getting that late first round pick plus salary filler, maybe it doesn't matter as much. But he would be a great fit he was shooting the lights out of the ball. Feels like he's peeled back a little bit ever since he dealt with that shoulder thing. Still, he would work for this team too. I had KJ Martin circled defensively. Yeah. He doesn't have the 3-point shot, 30% from 3 this year, but he just puts a ton of pressure on the rim, which is something the Suns just still that. That's not what they do. And so that could really work with some of the lineups they have. He makes so little, but what is it going to cost to bring him in? He is playing with the Rockets as of right now. They just have so many different guys. It might be easier to acquire him if Jason Tate was healthy. Is there a KJ Martin, Eric Gordon trade to work out in tandem where you're only giving up this year's first round pick plus salary filler? That would be an interesting dynamic because you're ostensibly addressing a couple needs at once. Eric Gordon gives you another shooter, another guy who can handle the ball. I know Campaign has played pretty well this year. The bench, I've said this, I think, on the podcast before, has been really surprising for Phoenix. But if you have a Gordon KJ Martin combo, again, the spacing gets iffy with Martin, but like that you can build some really awesome lineups around him that get you at least 3 shooters on the court, if not 4, depending on who's at center. Like if you're playing him with Jock Landale, like there you go. So I have him there. This feels like a buy low right now, not part of the Pacers rotation, shooting very poorly, but he can defend a bunch of different positions and has shot the 3 ball better in the past on low volume. O'Shea Brissett. I think there was a Suns fan, name I mentioned, that said he sucked a couple months ago. It was before the season started. I mean, he's not been good right now, but he gives you just a lot of defensive scalability for one. And if he can start making those threes again, I don't know what he costs you at this point either. Like we're talking about cheaper options in the well, and I don't think he would cost you an arm and a leg at this point. And I just think he's shooting 14.2% from 3. That would progress to a higher mark if he's with the Suns. I think we're obligated to mention the Jazz here. They are in first place in the West, so why would you trade anyone, let alone to a team that's in your conference that you're battling for first place with at the moment? But let's just assume like this is still the route they want to go. There are 3 players on the Jazz that can make sense for the Suns. I'll rank them in order of what I think are the most sensible. Kelly Olynyk, I don't want him playing the 4 a ton, but he shoots the 3 ball well enough. And he does some just like north-south stuff off the dribble, but it feels like north, let's say like north, like southwest. Like it's just, he's not getting you all that rim pressure, but he can work and go downhill a little bit and has like a little FU to him when he does have the ball in his hands. So you could play him with 8 in Orlando if you wanted. You could also play him at the 5. I do like, would the Jazz trade him? I don't know. Vanderbilt seems like he's very mumuch part of their future. He would be a defensive monster for them. He gives you someone else who could put additional rim pressure, not with the ball in his hands. Of course, he's one more. He's not dynamic as an offensive player, I would say is the best way to phrase it. I actually don't love his fit. I might like the Olynyk fit a little bit better, but you have Sharks there already, and it's just, I don't know. Vanderbilt has the way higher ceiling defensively, and if you want to really start like muck up things, or maybe you want to be more aggressive and force turnovers, try and get away with playing him and Ayton together, I don't necessarily know how that would look. He's also cheap, but he's costing you probably your 2023 first round pick would be my guess. And then there's Larry Markkinen just balling out this year. You could play, he's played the 3 a lot the past 2 years. You could certainly play him at the 4. He would be more complimentary in Phoenix's system, but like they could give him the keys to some bench units that he would really love. Can they get him 5 out like he's used to playing in Utah at the moment? Yeah, there are some lineups. I mean, look, Ayton spaces the floor in his own right, or you get Landale out there with him. Those could be some funky bench units, but it's going to cost you, I think, for Markkinen more than just your 2023 pick plus your salary filler. So I wouldn't go all in or even semi all in on a Markkinen trade, even though I think he'd be a decent fit. 2 other names I thought of: Kyle Kuzma in Washington. I don't know if the Wizards how do they view their season? Like as I record this, they are not good. I'm trying to think of where they were with their net rating. They are now 20. They've worked all their way up to 25th in net rating. Congratulations to the Washington Wizards. 23rd in offense, 21st in defense. Just I did a Kristaps Porzingis breakdown the other day for this podcast. He's cooled off recently. Just not really a great look for them, but I don't think they're committed to, selling at this point. This is probably a situation you'd have to wait out. Maybe it's not, just because they know Kyle Kuzma is about to hit free agency as a $12 million or $13 million player option that he's definitely going to decline. He would be a fantastic fit for the Suns. Are you getting him for the 1 first-round pick in Jay Crowder? What's interesting there is just like the Wizards could literally plug Jay Crowder into that Kyle Kuzma role. Maybe they think he becomes cheaper than Kuzma. Is that something they could explore? I'd like to say the Suns should go after Denny Avdia, but that's just it's not something that I think either team is really going to look at. And the other one would be Josh Richardson. You are scaling down your lineup, but like this is someone who's going to give you a lot defensively still, and he can hit just there. He's going to want to take some more complicated looks from 3 and off the dribble, but like that's not how he needs to be used, and he doesn't need that usage to succeed. He's shooting 41.9% from three this year, a little bit lower on the 2-point percentage where they've let him explore it off the dribble a little bit. He's actually averaging 3.4 assists, which I didn't realize until right this moment. So I think he can give you some minutes against like the fours, like certain fours defensively, but he can give you minutes against the twos, the threes, and the ones. Not going to help you carry bench units. But again, Cam Johnson wasn't that type of initiator either. And so if you're the Suns, if you're giving up, what are you giving up in this instance? Can you give someone Jay Crowder who said something to the Spurs that because you're not giving up a first round pick. And the Spurs just might want Josh Richardson around as sort of a culture guy. Also, they're at 500 as well, around like flirting around there. So not going to cost you first round pick, but I think he'd be a great fit in Phoenix. Those are the names that mostly spring to mind for me. Sort of mid end, nothing really super high end there. If a high end name does become available and everyone's looking at Kevin Durant, I think that's the natural one here. I know some people flirted with, and this wouldn't have been a Suns target anyway, but a Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam was a dream way back when. Now he's banged up, by the way, but like that doesn't seem like a team. I thought about Gary Trent Jr. for the Suns as well. I kind of like him. He's headed to free agency though. Would you give up your 2023 first for him? Jay Crowder and I guess Saric in that situation, or Shamet? I think you might actually need Shamet though with Cam out. I guess you could consider it. And Jay Crowder is sort of right up their alley when you look at it. So he actually might be a little small. He doesn't fall between 6'7" and 6'9". I don't think he's like 6'5", 6'6". I'll have to look that up. So, the Raptors might not be in there. Yeah, he's 6'6". That's just the hair. It's only you're allowed to have Fred VanVleet. That's your small dude. And then everyone else needs to be between 6'7" and unless you're Christian Koloko, there's your one big dude. So, like, that's it. I wouldn't mind it, but Gary Trent Jr. has been all over the place this season on offense, especially. So, I think, yeah, he would help out a ton, but if you're looking for him to do more off the dribble stuff and you're still sizing yourself down here, where he's not going to be cover the four assignments, that's very much, you're still going to need Torrey Craig to step up, maybe even Josh Okogie even more, in addition to Mikal Bridges as well. Which is why some of the other names just might make like a Josh Richardson might just make a little bit more sense for how he could pitch in defensively. Even Harrison Barnes, the idea of him, okay, he can go up against fours. If you wanted a point of attack defender, though, like I guess that's where KJ Martin could come in, or like even an O'Shea Brissett can do some of that. So I get that standpoint. There's just not a lot available right now because we're waiting for the trade market to still develop since we're so early into the season. But yeah, those would be my targets for the Suns. Let me know if you have any that are different or any ones that I did not mention.